The year is 138 BCE. China is under the rule of the Han Dynasty, a kingdom of order and ambition, stretching across fertile river valleys and guarded by towering mountains. In the imperial court of Emperor Wu, the air is thick with the scent of sandalwood and the sound of silk robes whispering across polished floors. The empire is prosperous, but it is also surrounded by shadows. To the north, beyond the Great Wall, the Xiongnu nomads raid the borders. To the west, deserts and mountains hide lands known only in rumor, lands said to hold powerful horses, precious stones, and strange foods. Emperor Wu is not content with stories. He wants alliances, trade, and above all, knowledge of what lies beyond the horizon. And so he sends one man, Zhang Qian, a court official, on a mission that will change the course of history. The mission of Zhang Qian. Zhang Qian's journey begins in secrecy. He carries no banners, no grand army, only a small escort and the emperor's orders sealed in silk. The path west is dangerous, narrow mountain passes, deserts with no water for weeks, and tribes that look upon strangers with suspicion. Before long, Zhang Qian is captured by the Xiongnu. Years pass, yes, years, before he escapes. But even in captivity, he listens. He gathers information about faraway kingdoms, fertile valleys, and the people who live between China and the lands of the West. When he finally reaches the region of Fergana, he sees something that astonishes him. Horses unlike any in China. Tall, muscular, with coats that shine in the sun, they are called the heavenly horses. Local legend says they sweat blood, though Zhang suspects it is a trick of parasites under their skin. These horses are prized by warriors, and Emperor Wu believes they will give his armies an unstoppable advantage against the nomads. A deal is struck: silk for horses, and for the first time, Chinese silk begins its long journey toward lands that have never felt its smooth touch. The opening of the West. Zhang Qian returns to China after more than a decade away. He is greeted as a hero, but also as a man who brings news far more valuable than the horses. He speaks of kingdoms beyond the deserts, Parthia, Bactria, and places even further west. He tells of goods unknown in China, glassware that catches light like frozen water, grapes for making wine, and carpets so fine they seem woven from clouds. Emperor Wu is fascinated. The emperor orders roads to be improved, guard stations to be built, and official caravans to be organized. What began as a single man's mission will soon become the artery of an empire, a road that is not one road at all, but a web of paths stretching from the heart of China to the shores of the Mediterranean. Silk as a symbol. In the early days, one item more than any other captures the imagination of the West: silk. To the Romans, silk is magic. It is lighter than linen, smoother than water, and it shimmers in the sunlight. They believe it grows on trees. The truth, that it comes from the cocoons of silkworms, is a closely guarded Chinese secret. To reveal it would be to give away an empire's treasure. In the Han court, silk is more than clothing. It is a diplomatic gift, a currency, a symbol of civilization itself. Merchants carry bolts of it westward, and in return, they bring back glass, silver, precious stones, and knowledge of worlds beyond China's borders. The hazards of the early Silk Road. But these first caravans are not without danger. The deserts of the West are unforgiving. The Taklamakan Desert in particular earns its name. You go in, and you don't come out. Sandstorms can bury entire caravans in hours. The cold at night is bone deep, while the heat of day is enough to blister skin. Travelers follow the oases, each a fragile green jewel in a sea of gold sand. Lose the path, and death is certain. Beyond the deserts lie mountains, the Pamirs, so high that the air itself feels thin and sharp. Here, snow can fall even in summer, and the narrow passes echo with the roar of avalanches. And then there are the human dangers: bandits, rival armies, and shifting alliances among the kingdoms that control the trade routes. The Han Empire's gamble. Emperor Wu knows that keeping the Silk Road open will require more than goodwill. He sends soldiers to secure passes, garrisons to protect traders, and envoys to negotiate safe passage. This is an investment in wealth, in influence, and in the future. The Han Dynasty begins to see itself not just as the center of the world, but as part of a vast network of civilizations. The Silk Road is not yet fully formed, but its first threads have been woven, threads of silk, of trust, and of ambition. Cultural ripples. Along with goods, the first wave of ideas begins to travel. From the West comes knowledge of grape wine, alfalfa for feeding horses, and new styles of armor. From China flows lacquerware, paper in its earliest forms, and philosophies that intrigue foreign courts. These exchanges are small at first, a rumor here, a trinket there, but over decades, they will grow into something far more profound, the blending of cultures across continents. A quiet revolution. Few in the Han Dynasty realize it at the time, but the opening of this route will change the fate of empires. Silk will clothe Roman senators. Buddhist statues will stand in Chinese temples. And along the road, cities will rise from the dust, built on trade and the promise of connection. Zhang Qian could not have imagined it. He set out to find the lies and returned with the map of a world. Soft pause, the wind picks up, as if carrying the scent of spice and the distant sound of hooves. The Silk Road is open, but its story has only just begun. Merchants, camels, and caravans. Soft desert wind, the faint creak of wooden wheels, the rhythmic crunch of hooves in sand. When most people today hear the words Silk Road, they imagine a single highway, perhaps paved in stone, stretching from China to Rome. But in truth, it was never just one road. It was a vast network, like a spider's web across mountains, deserts, and valleys. From China's ancient capital of Chang'an, the roots fanned out like the branches of a tree, splitting into northern and southern paths around deserts, reuniting in far-off oases and branching again toward India, Persia, and the Mediterranean. Every step of it was walked, ridden, and carried by merchants, animals, and the endless hum of human ambition. The caravan, a moving city. To survive the Silk Road, a trader never traveled alone. Instead, they joined caravans, great moving communities of merchants, guards, guides, cooks, and servants. A large caravan might have hundreds of camels. The camels were the lifeline, able to carry heavy loads for days without water, their padded feet perfect for sand, their slow swaying gait a rhythm older than civilization itself. Alongside the camels came mules and horses for faster travel and for carrying passengers. At night, the caravan would halt at a caravanserai, a roadside inn built like a fortress. These were safe havens with thick walls to keep out bandits, wells for fresh water, and courtyards where camels could rest. Inside, the merchants shared news, traded small goods, and exchanged stories in dozens of languages. The life of a Silk Road merchant. A Silk Road merchant was part trader, part diplomat, and part survivor. He had to know the value of his goods not just in one market, but in many. Silk that was worth a fortune in the Roman Empire might fetch less in Persia, where fine cloth was common. Spices from India might be precious in China, but worthless in the very ports where they were loaded onto ships. Merchants learned the art of relay trading. Few traveled the full length of the road. Instead, goods passed from one set of hands to another, each merchant moving them across familiar territory before selling to the next. In this way, a bolt of silk might change owners a dozen times before it reached a Roman market. This meant that a Chinese merchant might never meet a Roman buyer, yet they were connected, each link in the chain depending on the others. Goods on the road. The name Silk Road comes from China's most famous export, but silk was far from the only treasure. From China, silk, Paper, an invention that would one day transform the world. Lacquerware and porcelain. Tea and medicinal herbs. From Central Asia and India. Spices, cinnamon, pepper, cardamom. Gems and precious stones. Cotton and wool textiles. Ivory and sandalwood. From the Middle East and Mediterranean. Glassware, shining like captured sunlight. Silver, gold, and fine jewelry. Olive oil and wine. Carpets woven with intricate designs. But perhaps the most valuable cargo was not physical at all. The trade in ideas. Every time merchants met in the markets of Samarkand or Kashgar, they exchanged not only goods, but knowledge. Languages mixed. Songs from Persia found new life in Chinese melodies. Buddhist monks from India carried sacred texts into China. Art styles traveled in both directions. Chinese dragons began appearing on Persian pottery, while Roman glasswork techniques influenced Chinese craftsmen. Religions spread along these routes like rivers following the lay of the land. Buddhism traveled from India to China and beyond. Islam would later spread eastward into Central Asia. Christianity, in some of its earliest forms, reached deep into Asia, carried by missionaries who braved the same deserts as the merchants. The dangers of the road. Life on the Silk Road was not all wealth and wonder. Bandits lurked in mountain passes and desert trails, targeting caravans heavy with goods. To deter them, caravans traveled with armed guards, often hired from local tribes who knew the land. Nature itself was a threat. In the deserts, sandstorms could strip the skin from a man's face and bury entire groups in minutes. In the mountains, avalanches, rockfalls, and sudden snow could end a journey without warning. There were also political dangers. Kingdoms and city-states along the road often taxed traders heavily or closed their borders during times of war. A caravan could be forced to turn back after months of travel, losing everything. And then there were diseases. Crowded markets and caravanserais were breeding grounds for illness, and the Silk Road would, in centuries to come, play a role in the spread of some of history's deadliest plagues. The role of the caravanserai. In this dangerous world, caravanserais were more than inns. They were the beating heart of Silk Road life. These fortified rest stops appeared every 30 to 40 kilometers. Along major routes, the distance a camel could travel in a day. A typical caravanserai was a square or rectangular building with a single massive gate. Once inside, traders could lower their guard, at least for the night. Inside, stalls lined the walls, rooms opened into courtyards, and there were wells, storage rooms, and small shrines for prayer. News traveled fast here. A merchant could learn which roads were blocked, which markets were flooded with silk, and where a new war had broken out. For many, the caravanserai was also a place of wonder. Imagine hearing music from a distant land for the first time, or tasting a food whose name you cannot pronounce, or listening to a story from a place you will never see, yet now feel connected to. The sound of the road. If you were to walk alongside a Silk Road caravan, the soundscape would be unforgettable. The deep, guttural groan of camels, the clink of metal pots tied to saddlebags, the shuffle of sandals in sand, the soft murmur of voices in a dozen languages. The wind might carry the faint scent of cardamom or the sharper bite of leather and sweat. At night, when the caravan stopped, fires would glow like stars on the earth. Men and women would sit in small groups, sipping tea or wine, their shadows dancing on the walls of tents. Some would sing, others would tell tales, and somewhere, someone would always be mending a harness or checking the load of a camel for the next day's journey. A world between worlds. The merchants of the Silk Road lived in a world that belonged to no single empire. A Persian trader might wear Chinese silk, carry Indian spices, and speak enough Greek to bargain with a Roman buyer. A Chinese merchant might drink wine from a Syrian jar while listening to a lute from Central Asia. This mingling of goods, people, and ideas was the true magic of the Silk Road. It was not just a path for commerce, It was a bridge between worlds, one step at a time. The wind fades, replaced by the slow, steady beat of hooves, growing softer. The caravans will move on tomorrow, carrying their treasures toward new hands, new markets, new lands. And in their wake, they leave a trail of connection, invisible, but strong enough to shape the course of history. If you want, I can now write Part 4, the spread of ideas, religions, and art in the same immersive style, so we keep building toward your 10,000-word complete story.